Argentina take on Croatia. It's Messi magic against Luka Modric's story as well. Let's not forget Luka Modric in this, by the way. There's a lot of talk about Lionel Messi. We're going to talk a lot about Lionel Messi in this as well. But Luka Modric is 37 years old. He's still running games. We cannot sleep on his brilliance. But let's go all the way back, right to the start. Lionel Messi. Is it going to be more Messi magic when they take on Croatia?
I think it will be, but it would just be sort of that one moment of brilliance. We spoke a lot about Messi today, and we spoke about those magic moments that can happen, but I think it's going to be down to that creativity. Like, there's going to be moments where this Croatian defence has been so good, and that's been aided by the midfield as well with the work that they've been doing. But this World Cup is coming down to moments, and I think Messi is the man to make that magic moment.
You have Croatia's defence in a way, and they've had an incredible tournament. Juranovic against Brazil was outstanding. He's got lungs for days. He was up and down. Then obviously Dejan Lovren has had this sort of... He hasn't made a single error, it says in front of me here, but I will put it out there. There was a moment where he swiped one in the air and it could have gone anywhere.
He knows what he's doing. It's all under control.
Yeah. That was his exact reaction. And then, of course, your man, Josko Gvardiol. I mean, you want him badly at Chelsea for a reason.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's, like I said before, he's the man in the mask. And I think that adds that extra allure to a player. He's 20 years old. I don't know how he's 20 years old. He looks about 35, but he plays like he's 35 as well, with that experience and the ability to play out and pass. And obviously he's physically impressive, but his ability to just play with his feet, his pass accuracy is 96% in his own half in this tournament, which is absolutely incredible. And he's a man that makes Croatia so much better, and we see how measly they've been in terms of letting in goals, and he's going to have to come to the fore for them to have any chance of beating Argentina, who have gathered momentum and are on the roll at the moment.
I think the interesting one with Croatia as well, all we seem to speak about, you've flashed back 4 years to when England played them in the semi-final, was like, their legs are going to be gone, they just had extra time. I mean, it was the same thing in this World Cup as well, like 4 days later after 120 minutes, that midfield three, I can shock you all, gents, I've never actually played at a World Cup, but this midfield three almost reminds you of, like, you know when you go Sunday League and there's three midfielders that, you know, probably played a bit higher up. They're not doing any running, but they just know what to do, where to pass it about. And at the top end, I feel like this is what the Croatian midfield's doing. Like, they're running the show subtly, but they're doing it so well.
I think one thing Croatia really excel at, and this team, as you just rightly mentioned, have done it time and time again, is they suffocate the life out of the opposition. They'll tire you out. And considering they don't really play with a striker, the striker doesn't score goals, they have this midfield three that sort of just kind of like play rondos in midfield among each other. The only difference is they've got like pit bulls running around after them, and it makes no difference to them. Then they win fouls in clever areas. They know when to slow the game down. It reminds me a little bit of like Zidane's Madrid team, where like you think you're in control and they'll just take it back off you. They'll give you it for a little bit. They'll take it back off you. I do worry that Argentina midfield, which has been tinkered with a lot, actually in the Netherlands game, Frankie de Jong was very good for a 30-40 minute spell. They didn't really dominate the game. If this comes down to a midfield battle, you probably back Croatia's midfield.
You do, just because they play together so much. And I think Kovacic, looking back to his best, his club form's not been great for Chelsea this season, but he's looked really, really good up and at them, and a true box-to-box midfielder, which is a rarity in football these days. And yeah, they understand, like, I don't know, the pantomime of football, especially at major tournaments. They've got that experience of getting to a World Cup final before, and they almost break the game down to segments. It's like, we'll get through this 15 minutes and they'll get through that next 15 minutes. And even when they went behind against Brazil, they knew that there was still an opportunity to get a goal because they've been here before. And what they do have and what we don't have as England fans is they have no fear of penalty shootouts. They have zero fear of penalty shootouts. The game can go 120 minutes and they're more than satisfied to have it out on spot kicks. So it's going to be a tough game for Argentina. You do think that Messi's magic will prevail, but this is a Croatia side that proved people wrong for the best part of 8 years. And with Luka Modric, who's one of the best midfielders of his generation, you've always got a chance.
Well, look at that Brazil quarter-final as well. It went into extra time. Brazil scored, and I think, well, I almost forgot the scoreline. I think Brazil did for a part because Croatia flipped the switch. And then all of a sudden there was like a 4-on-4 break on the halfway line, and they were in and they scored the goal. So like you said, they managed the game perfectly, and it's like they're like a predator. They know when to attack. They know when the gaps are appearing because they've been there, done it, and that prevailed against Brazil as well.
It's always extremely handy when you've got a keeper in nets who's in form as well. Made 11 saves against Brazil. I don't actually think any of the saves were spectacular, but he was always in the right position.
I was going to say, do you think that's down to it as well? He was getting himself, because nothing spectacular was there, but he was in the right place at the right time.
It sort of reminds me of Alisson Becker a little bit. I'm not saying he's at that level, but Alisson Becker makes goalkeeping look really easy because he's always in the right position. There's almost like never a situation where you go, oh, he might have to tip that over the bar. It's always like caught in his hands. And I think the way Croatia play football, they want to play everything at like almost a medium tempo. They never want to go to 100%. They never want to go to 10%. They're always playing between 40 and 70. And when you've got a keeper who sort of is like in there as well, you never see him sort of palm anything. He'll never sort of flap at anything. He'll equally not make 7 unbelievable saves. You kind of always can play the game in them situations. He also made 4 penalty saves. We were talking about penalties. If this goes to pens, probably got the 2 best keepers when it comes to pens. Argentina on the flip side will be thinking, we've scored 9 goals this tournament. They'll probably going, yes, we're talking a lot about Messi magic, but Julian Alvarez has been in good form. It's going to be an interesting battle as to how they find goals in a game where Croatia probably are going, we'll take 0-0, we take 120 minutes.
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting for the midfield, Enzo Fernandez as well, like coming up against that Croatian midfield 3, which is so established and been so dominant and have done what they've done in major tournaments. Him coming into this, a lot of people speak about him. I mean, this World Cup feels like there's been so many people, you know, I can speak for days about Jude Bellingham, and Enzo Fernandez has been on that level definitely for Argentina. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he can have the impact he's been having against such an established 3.
Yeah, that's my biggest worry for Argentina, is that he could get drowned in that midfield. They have the ability to do that, especially when, like you say, they suffocate the opposition and they don't give you that time and space that you thought that you had. And it's a case of, I think they make the pitch look a lot smaller and they make you have to make quicker decisions than other teams. And that's just experience, really. And they are an impressive tournament team, but I just think with how Argentina are at the moment and the fact that they have got Lautaro Martinez coming off the bench, and I think scoring that winning penalty will do huge things for his confidence, and that's an added weapon for them. I think that the players on the bench could definitely have a part to play in the game that's probably going to go 120 minutes.
The situation you don't want to be in if you're Argentina is concede first. If you concede first, like Croatia will just absolutely drown you in possession, and then you're just desperate to give it to Messi and go, please, I'm begging you to do something. My only thing here is Argentina are actually suit playing against teams that have the ball, because when they have to have the ball, they actually don't really have the ability to break a team down, and then they sort of get desperate because they don't have a lot of width. I know Di Maria came off the bench, but Molina, they actually tinkered to a back 5. I thought that's when they had the most width, but I think they'll go back to a back 4 again, and then you don't have a lot of width. You're going to play everything down the middle. That absolutely plays into Croatia's hands. If I'm the Argentina manager, I'm tempted to go, let's play that back 3 again. Let's play 2 wing backs really high and wide. Let's try and pull Croatia wide to open the space in the middle to then get Messi where you want him.
Well, I think the interesting thing, we go back to the Saudi Arabia game, that might have actually been like a blessing in disguise for them to sort of think and change up their formation, because like you said, with the goal that was scored against Netherlands was Molina getting down that right hand side, which we probably may not have seen if they hadn't had to rethink their tactic. So one thing that the best way England performed, I thought, was when we had Trippier and Shaw forward in those attacking areas for England games. So I think if Argentina can do that and just spread the game like you said, I think that's where they're going to win.
Yeah, it's if you have wide players, whether they be fullbacks or whether they be wing backs, if they move to a back 5 that make the opposition think, then that's another thing that's in your favour, and it gives you an advantage elsewhere on the pitch. It's interesting if you look at the final 4 of this competition, though. You look at Croatia, you look at Argentina, you look at Morocco. They've all got keepers that inspire, and in the competition where we've seen multiple penalty shootouts, I think having that faith in the person who's stopping the goals when they hit the back of the net is huge for these teams, and it can come to play again. You said that in this game, we've probably got 2 of the best keepers in terms of saving penalties in the competition playing in the same game, and I think that the confidence from being defensively resolute, which most of these teams in the final 4 are, gives you the advantage in the tournament, because you know if you don't concede, you're not going to lose. You can take the game to 120 minutes.
What's happening with penalties as well? Like, I feel like domestically, like with the Carabao Cup final, FA Cup final, we were in keeper territory. And then, like, especially when Spain stepped up. I mean, it was some of the worst penalties I've ever seen in my life.
Crazy, because Luis Enrique said that you won't get in the squad unless you've practiced 10,000 penalties. Or was it 1,000?
It's 1,000 each. Maybe they were just knackered. They saw a penalty. No, I didn't. Another one. I've done 1,000. Yeah.
This is my 1 too far.
Forget this.
The penalty. To be fair, I think that's an interesting topic actually, because Argentina looked very cool from the spot, but I would quietly argue that Croatia were definitely like almost like robotic with their penalties. Like Argentina did look under pressure, but they have enough quality. Whereas Croatia, I felt like you could have given the pen to their 18th sub and he would have You can't have 18 subs, but he would have definitely scored a pen. So if it goes to penalties, I personally would be backing Croatia. But are we going to learn our lesson here and back the underdog, or are you also still backing Argentina?
I think heart says it's going to be a France-Argentina final, but just the way Croatia have been there and done it, and like I've written them off before, I think it's going to be Croatia that go through.
On pens or?
Oh, yeah, let's go pens. I'll give you a little cheeky pens there.
In an Argentina shirt, you're saying
I
Croatia
don't know what I'm
going
doing.
through.
Don't listen to anything I say. I've got my Croatia one underneath. It's ready to go.
I do think it's going extra time. And for some reason, I just think that Argentina will get 2 goals in extra time. So I'm going 2-0 Argentina after extra time.
Wow.
Love that.
I think we're going pens again, but I think Argentina are going to win it, despite everything I said about Croatia and their pens.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.